The ability to create objects in AutoCAD is a must, and we've seen many different ways to create data and objects. But what if you didn't create the drawing? What if somebody else in your office made it? Or what if it came from an outside vendor? Knowing about the data in your drawing is essential in order for you to be able to work with it. Let's take a look at an example file. Go to this chapter's project folder. And let's take a look at the blocks and tables file. Here we have a simple architectural drawing that has many different blocks and information on it. It's an electrical schematic, so you can see where there are some outlets and lighting. Now there are several different methods to list the properties of your data and the line work. One way is to use the properties palette, as we've seen in other chapters. Press Ctrl and 1 at the same time, go to an object and select it, and it will tell you all about it. That's a very quick and easy way to get that information. It's a great way for you to get information about an object, one object at a time. And it can be overwhelming too, though, because of the amount of information that the properties palette displays. Plus, it takes up a lot of room. There is a feature that you can use called Quick Properties. This feature will pop up a window that will display a very short list of your properties information for that object. Now to turn that on, go over to your status bar in the bottom right and click on the Customization button. Come up to the Quick Properties and click it to check it on. Now that I've turned on the access to the Quick Properties button, I can turn it on here in the status bar. Right now it's turned off. When it's blue, it's on. When it's gray, it's off. Now when I select an object, I'll get this little pop-up window that gives me some very basic information about the object. It's nowhere near the amount of data from the properties palette, but sometimes this is just enough. So we can see that this is an arc. I can tell what color and layer it's on, and I get the radius. A lot of this information is very useful, and many times that's all that I'm really looking for. I can just click Close to close it. A lot of people will turn that feature off. They don't like it. However, it can be very useful because it allows you to see information about objects. Another tip that you can use is just to hover over the object. Don't select it. And this will give you some little bitty bits of information, even fewer bits than the quick properties. But maybe it's just enough. It tells me what it is, what color, what layer, and what line type they are. Now, another method to find out what information is to use the list command. Just type in the word list, press enter, and select your object. You can even select more than one object at a time. And when you do, this gives you a lot of information in a text format in your command line of what you see here. Now, the really nice thing about this is that you can select what's here, right-click, and copy it. So if you have some important information like radius, start angle, end angle, length, perhaps you need to put this into a report, you can select it, right-click it, copy it, and you can paste it right into a Word document or into an email. It's regular text. You can even paste it into a text object inside AutoCAD. We have seen how to get information about our objects, but what if we need information that these objects create? For example, let's say I need to know the distance between two lines. That info is not displayed in the properties palette or in a list command because it's not an object that I can select. However, there are many tools or utilities available to us in AutoCAD. Let's open up the architectural example file. Now I can get the coordinates off of any point if I have them turned on, of course. I can turn them on if they're not already under the customization option right down here. If I go all the way up to the top, there's a coordinate setting. Click it to turn it on. Or I can use the command called ID, just the letter I and the letter D. Press return, pick on a point, and that will give you the specific X, Y, and Z coordinates for that point. So that's very easy to do. Now, AutoCAD has a measurement command called distance. Now, this command has been in there for a very long time. It's very easy to use. Just type in DI, press enter, 1 point, and then pick the second point. And it will give you an XYZ delta or change in direction. And it will also give you an absolute distance between the 2 points that you measured. It will also tell you the angle in your different planes that you have picked it in. So that's very simple. But it's limited. It will only give you the distance between two set points, but that's okay. many times that's all you need. AutoCAD does have a much more advanced measurement set of tools called Measure Geom, or Measure Geometry is what it's short for. If you go to the Home tab on the ribbon and go to the Utilities panel, you can find your ID point right here. You can also find the Measure Geom command right here. You can measure distance, radius, angle, area, or volume. We'll start off with distance. Select the command, I pick one point, and then I pick a second point. It works the same way as the DI or distance command. But as you can see here, I have some more options. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let's say I need to get the length of this wall and this wall, the total. So if I go up to my utilities again, go to measure, go to distance, I pick my first point, and now there are options in the command line for multiple points. Type in M or just select it. Now I can go and select as many points as I need, and I can find the perimeter of this room. Once I've picked all of my points, press enter, and it will give me a grand total of that line. So you can find the distance of multiple points. Now it's a true distance, point A to point B, straight line. It won't give you the distance along an arc. Now there's also the radius. Radius is very simple. You just find an arc, select it, and it tells you the radius. Now there's an angle option. That's very simple as well. Pick your first line, pick your second line, and it will tell you the angle. Very simple, very easy to use. Now the area and the volume options work exactly the same way, so I'm going to kind of cover both of those at the same time. Area works very similarly to the distance multiple point option. First, you have to define your area. Now you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can pick your points. So I can pick these 4 points. Or if I have a closed object, I can just select the object. I get to that by picking the object option. So once I click that, then I click the object and it will find it for me. But otherwise, I go with the default setting, pick my first point, my second, my third, and it makes this green window. That's telling me that everywhere that's green is going to be my area. Once I've picked all of my points, you need a minimum of 3 points, of course, I will press the enter key. And it gives me my square area in square units. This happens to be in feet, and so it interprets that into feet. Plus, it also gives you the perimeter length. So this is another way to find the perimeter of an object very quickly. Now there are some options to the area option. I can add and subtract areas, which is kind of nice. So let's say I want to find the area of this whole building minus this middle room. Now I could do a couple of different things. I could find each individual area and then add them all up, or I can find the area of the entire room, then find the area of this room and subtract it. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start off, since I know I'm going to have to add and subtract, I have to start off telling it to add. So I use A for the add area option. Press enter, and then I just find my area like I normally would. So I'm going to click on my outer foremost points. And now press enter. So I have my total area right here. Now I'm going to type in S for subtract area, press enter, and then I'm going to pick the inside of this room. And as you can see, it's a different color. It's red. Once I've done that, press enter. When I'm completely done, press enter again, and here's my total area, minus this area right there. So I can do a couple of different steps in one. Over time, an AutoCAD file can get dirty or bloated. What I mean by being dirty or bloated is that a lot of extra data or styles that aren't being used anymore are still in your file. That makes the file size larger. It could slow things down here and there. And in fact, a lot of times there are things inside our files that we never even use, but maybe they were brought in through a block or another file that we inserted, or by reusing other files to start a new one. Now, this happens, and it happens all the time. It can get in the way or even slow down the program because it has to remember all of these things while the file is opened. One of the biggest deals is the size of the files. If they're too big, then you're going to have trouble emailing them to others, and they can take up too much room on your server or computer. So let's open up the Architectural Annotation, Scaling, and Multi-Leaders file. Now, one thing that you can do is to delete what you don't need anymore once your drawing is finished. So for example, let's say I make a drawing and I don't really need this view. I can select everything and erase it. Select everything that you don't need, of course. Keep the things that you do. Now, once an object is deleted, there are still other sub-objects in there, like layers, text styles, dimension styles, and things like that. Now, once those things aren't being used, they're still in the memory so that they're ready to be used again, just in case you want to. Now, we can get rid of those items with what's called the purge command. It's real easy to get to. Just type in the word purge, or type in the keyboard shortcut of just PU. That brings up this purge window. Now, it starts off here with two different options at the top. Unused items, meaning what you can purge out of the drawing, and used items right here, meaning the items that you cannot purge. So these are all of the blocks that we're using, all the detailed views, dimension styles, etc. We can't get rid of these things because they're actually being used. I mean, somewhere in this line work, it's using these items. However, through this list of the items that you can purge, these are the things that are in the file that aren't being used. As you can see in this example, there really aren't very many, but there are some. So this is what you want to do. You want to select the purge nested items as well. A nested item is an item that's being used only by something else, but it's buried in there, and you can't get rid of it until you get rid of the block or the style that's using it, even if you aren't using that block or that style. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have to come back and repurge and repurge and repurge again until there are no other items involved. This is the quickest way to do it. It gets rid of everything that's not being used, keeps going down the list until it finds everything that's not being used and it gets rid of it. Once you're ready, just click the Purge All button. It'll ask you if you want to purge just this one item, or do you want to purge everything in the list? I pick that, and now you can see there's nothing left in here. And our file's been cleaned up. I'm going to undo that purge. I'm going to type in PU again. Now, sometimes you want to just purge one item. Expand out your list, find that one item, select it, and click the Purge button. Not the Purge All, just the Purge button. And then it will ask you, do you really want to do this, yes or no? Essentially, it's purge this item or skip this item. Say purge this item. And now you can see these other items are still there. This allows you the option to specifically select a certain object that you need to get rid of. I know I'm not. Have you ever made a mistake? Don't worry, you will. That's where the undo command comes into play in AutoCAD. This command is found in most computer programs, and it is one of my all-time favorite commands. Let's open up a file. Let's look at the ice rink example file. This is a layout of a very basic or standard ice hockey rink. Now, for the undo command, there are several ways to use it. You can type in the word undo, press enter, and you can tell it how many operations that you want to undo. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, however many there are. You can also just type in the letter U, and that will undo the last thing that you did. You can also type in Control Z. So if I draw a line, I didn't mean to do that, press Control Z. That will also give you the undo. You can also come up to the Quick Access toolbar, click on this little arrow. As you click on it, it will undo an option. If you click on the little arrowhead, it will give you a list of different things that you've done. So let's say we panned, we zoomed, we drew a line, we copied that line, and there we go. So now when I come up here, I click on this little arrow and it gives me a list of things. I can undo the last thing, which was a copy, or I can go through this list and undo all of them all at one time. Note that the undo has no effect on some commands in systems variables, including those that open, close, or save a window or a drawing, display information, change the graphics display, or regenerate the drawing, or even export the drawing into a different format. A bit of advice though, be careful when you undo because you can't undo an undo. Well, you can with a bit of an exception. That's with the redo command. You can find that right up here very easily. It works just like the undo, only it's in reverse. So I can put all those things back with the redo. So if you can undo something, you can redo it. But once you redo it, can you undo it again? You can keep going back and forth if you so choose. So you can get to the redo by typing in redo, just like you did with the undo command. Now the undo feature can In this chapter, we looked at a lot of the tools that we need to look at the data in our files. So let's have a little project here. Open up the file, ice rink example file. Imagine that we were given this AutoCAD drawing by our supervisor so that we can take some measurements on it to help make some construction estimates. Now, AutoCAD can be used for more than just drawing, and this is one great example. Once something is drawn or modeled, we can use CAD to get real-life information about it very quickly. And we can also use some calculations with that. So we need to know the area of the ice rinks. So let's open up the control panel. Because remember, the boss said he needed this right away. So we need to do this very quickly. So what we're going to do is select this outer object. And we're in luck because it happens to be a closed polyline. You can see that here in our quick properties. It tells us it's a polyline. And if I go to the properties palette even, it tells me that it is a closed polyline. I'm going to turn that off. Make sure we've selected everything. We only have one object selected. Great. We have the information that we need right here. So we need to know the area, and it's right here. If I click on this little calculator button, that will open up what's called the Quick Calc tool palette. Right here, this gives me the area in square units. So now I can just select this, right click, select copy, and go to my email and paste it in and tell the boss, hey, it's this many units square for the area. Some other information that we could find out is the total area for a couple of these items. These are hatch objects. So if I select this hatch object, my properties palette will give me the bit of information about that hatch. The quick properties palette gives me a little bit of information, but it doesn't give me the area that I need. I'm going to close that. I'm going to select this other hatch pattern. Now I have two hatch objects selected. And what's nice about hatch patterns is that they will give you the area in the properties palette, but they'll also give you the total area of all the selected objects. So I can get both of these and I don't have to add them up together because it's already added up for me. So that's a real good trick that you can use to find area for multiple objects. Just hatch them and select them, and you can get that information very quickly. Now let's say we need the perimeter of the total ice rink. That's this blue box. Okay, well, we need to go to the Home tab, go to the Utilities panel, and go to Measure, and we want to find Area. So this should be pretty straightforward. We'll just have to come up here because we don't have a closed object. And what we're going to do is just essentially trace out the corners of the building. So just zoom in and out with your mouse, pan around with the scroll wheel, select all of the corners, and we can get exact, and we could even go through and pick all of these little cutouts, but to save time today, I'm not going to. Once we have that done, press return, and there is our total perimeter and our area. Very useful. Now that we have our information collected, we need to clean up this drawing a little bit because we're going to email it to a client. So we want to make sure we purge the file. So type in purge or just PU. Make sure the purge nested items is selected. Make sure you're on the items that you can purge and click purge all. Click yes here that we do want to purge all items, and then click on the close. There we go. This file has been cleaned up. So now we're going to send it out. And that's our chapter project. Very simple. We gathered some information, we cleaned up the drawing, and we saw some different tools that we can use to gather the data that we need from our CAD files.